Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus upload, shall we? The following information is from abductee Christa Tilton, an attractive blonde or Nordic-appearing woman who relates some remarkable contactee and abduction type experiences which she had involving the Dulce base. Christa was kind enough to take the time to contribute her own fascinating experience to this work and answer several questions so that other abductees like herself may better understand their confusing encounters with alien abductors or even underground facilities. Christa goes forth and states, "Several months ago, I became aware of two different cases, one in May of 1973, in which a Judy Doherty of Texas had an unusual experience in which she may have been taken to an underground facility. Also an abduction case investigated by APRO and Mr. Paul Benowitz, in which in May of 1980, a Marina Henson of New Mexico had a similar experience in which she was taken to some type of underground facility. Since I'm doing the investigation into my own underground experience, I found that to be of any help to myself or anyone else that may have had a similar experience, I was going to have to make myself read their transcripts. For several months, I would procrastinate because, I suppose subconsciously, I did not really want to relive this experience I had. By reading about another person's experiences, now I'm glad I did. I finally am going to reveal some of many correlations of all three of our cases in hopes that others will come forward with more information. My experience happened in July of 1987. I had about a 3-hour missing time in which later, under hypnosis, I relived the most unusual night of my life. I did not go willingly to the craft. Two small aliens dragged me by my two arms on my back to the craft after they rendered me unconscious. The next thing I remember is waking up on a table inside of some type of small craft. A guide greeted me and gave me something to drink. I now believe it was a stimulant of some kind because I was not sleepy after I drank the substance. I was taken out of the craft, and when I looked around, I noticed that I was standing on top of a hill. It was dark, but I saw a faint light near a cavern. We walked up to this area, and it is then that I saw a man dressed in a red military-type jumpsuit, like a pilot would wear. My guide seemed to know this man as he greeted him. As we came closer, I also noted he wore the same type of patch and was carrying an automatic weapon. When we walked into the tunnel, I realized we were going right into the side of a large hill or mountain. There, we were met by another guard in red, and then I saw a computerized checkpoint with 2 cameras on each side. To my left was a large groove, where a small transit vehicle carried you further inside. To my right, it looked like a long hallway where there were many offices. We took the transit car and went for what seemed like a long time to another secured area. It was then that I was told to step onto some type of scale-like device that faced a computer screen. I saw lights flashing and numbers computing, and then a card was issued with holes punched into it. I would later realize it was used as identification inside a computer. I asked my guide where we were going and why. He didn't say too much the whole time, except that he needed to show me things that I needed to see for future reference. He told me that we had just entered level number 1 of the facility. I asked what kind of facility it was, and he did not answer. This story is very long and detailed, and I hope to write more about it, so I will highlight some of the things that I saw. It is taken to a huge-looking elevator that had no door. It was like a very large dumbwaiter. It took us down to level 2, where there were 2 more guards in different colored jumpsuits, and I had to go down a large hallway and saw many offices that had computers that lined the wall. As we walked by, I noticed the lighting was strange in that I couldn't see the source of it. Other people walked by and never once acted like I was a stranger. I felt I was in a huge office building where there were many employees and many offices and cubicles. I then saw an extremely large area in which, like a giant factory it looked like. There were small alien-type craft parked at the sides. Some were being worked on underneath, and it was then that I saw my first gray-typed alien. They seemed to be doing the menial jobs, and never once did they look up as we passed. There were computers posted everywhere. Then we arrived at another elevator and went down to level 5. It was then that I felt a sense of extreme fear and balked. My guide explained that as long as I was with him, I would not be harmed. So we got off, and I saw guards posted there at the checkpoint. This time, they were not friendly, and they were issuing orders right and left. I noticed that 2 guards seemed to be arguing about something, and they kept looking over at me. I wanted to find the closest exit out of this place, but I know I had come too far for that. This time, I was asked to change my clothes. I was told to put on what looked like a hospital gown. Only, thank God, there was a back to it. I did as I was told because I did not want to cause any trouble. I stepped onto the scale-like device, and suddenly the screen lit up, and I heard a strange tone and frequency that made my ears hurt. What I really thought was strange is that these guards saluted the guide I was with, although he was not wearing any military clothes. He was dressed in a dark green jumpsuit, but it had no insignia that I know of. He told me to follow him down this corridor. As we passed the guard station, I noticed the humming of those cameras. As they watched my every move, I was taken down another hall, and it was then that I smelled this horrid smell. Contrary to Judy and Marina's story, I knew what I was smelling, or at least I thought I knew. It smelled like formaldehyde. Because of my medical background, I felt probably more comfortable with this situation because I had gone through it so many times before. We came to a large room, and I stopped to look inside. I saw these huge, large tanks with computerized gauges hooked to them, and a huge arm-like device that extended from the top of some tubing down into the tanks. The tanks were about 4 feet tall, so standing where I was, I could not see inside of them. I did notice a humming sound, and it looked as if something was being stirred inside the tanks. I started to walk closer to the tanks, and it was at that time that my guide grabbed my arm and pulled me roughly out into the hall. He told me that I was not necessary to see the contents of the tank, that it would only complicate the matters. So we went on down the hallway, and he guided my arm into a large laboratory. I was amazed because I had worked in a laboratory before, and I was seeing machines that I had never seen before. It was then that I turned and saw a small gray being on his back, turned doing something at the counter. I heard the clinking of metal against metal. I had only heard this when I was preparing my surgical instruments for my doctor in surgery. Then my guide asked me to go and sit down on the table in the middle of the room. I told him that I would not do it, and he said that it would be much easier if I just comply. He was not smiling, and I was scared. I did not want to be left in this room with this gray alien. About the time I was thinking this is a human man entered. He was dressed like a doctor with a white lab coat and the same type of badge I was issued. My guide went to greet him, and they shook hands. I began shaking. I was cold. The temperature seemed awfully cold. My guide smiled at me and told me he would be waiting outside, and I would only be there for a few moments. I began to cry. I cry when I get scared. The gray alien took a look at me and turned around and began to continue what he was doing. The doctor called for more assistance, and it was then that one of the other gray aliens came in. The next thing I knew, I was very drowsy. I knew that I was being examined internally, and when I lifted my head, I saw this horrid gray alien glaring at me with large black eyes. It was then that I felt a stabbing pain. I screamed, and then the human doctor stood next to me and rubbed something over my stomach. It was cold. The pain immediately subsided. I could not believe what was happening to me all over again. I begged for them to let me go, but they just kept working very fast. After they had finished, I was told to get up and go to the small room and change back to my other clothes. I noticed blood if I had started my period, but I continued to get dressed, and when I came out, I saw the guide speaking with the doctor in the corner of the room. I just stood there helpless. I felt more alone than I ever had in my entire life. I felt like a guinea pig. After we left the laboratory, I was silent. I was angry at him for allowing this to happen to me again, but he said that it was necessary. He told me to forget about it. I see more aliens pass us in the hall. Again, it's as if I was a ghost. I asked my guide to please explain this place to me. He told me it was a very sensitive place and that I would be brought back here again in a few years. I again asked him where I was, and he told me that I could not be told for my own safety. We then got into a small transit car, and it took us to the other side. It was there that I saw the most disturbing things of all. Unlike the other two women, Marina Henson of New Mexico, who was abducted to the Dulce base in May of 1980, and Judy Doherty of Texas, who had a similar experience in May of 1973 that was investigated by APRO, and Paul Benowitz, who saw cows being mutilated. I saw what looked to me to be people of all different types standing up against the wall inside a clear casing-like chamber. I went closer, and it looked as if they were wax figures. I could not understand what I was seeing. I also saw animals in cages. They were alive. At this point, the guide escorted Christa to the elevator and up through the various levels, following which the transit car took her to an awaiting alien craft, at which point she was returned to her home some 3 hours after her abduction experience had begun. Incidentally, Christa claims to have experienced contacts with human-like beings from other worlds, one alien by the name of Maijan, who has dealt with Christa all her life and always wore an emblem of a feathered serpent, possibly symbolic of the ancient Mayan deity Quetzalcoatl. He also claims to have ancestors from the Aztec and Mayan race, as do several of the Talosians inhabiting the colony under Mount Shasta, California. Christa Tilton admits that of the human-like Pleiadians and Lyrans she has encountered, aside from her encounters with the short, tall gray, range from a strict non-interventionalist to a imperialistic factions who believe that conquering the planet Earth is justified as a means to subdue their perceived enemies on or below the surface of this planet. This may imply that the Draconians have, as many sources claim, maintained underground command centers beneath the surface of the planet Earth, from where they direct many of their interventionist interstellar activities. In addition to above, Christa was kind enough to answer some questions. This is an introduction by Christa. I've been investigating underground bases and Dulce, actually underground bases all over the world since 1987. I've had some good experiences and I've had some bad ones with aliens, etc. Question number 1. Have you seen any people who are being held captive underground during your abductions to Dulce and other bases? Her answer: first of all, let me state, there is more evidence now to prove that a base did indeed exist back in 1987 when I was abducted, about 8 years following the Dulce War, after which joint interaction ceased for a period of 2 years. And it was in the process of being dismantled. A lot of times the government will have underground bases for different purposes and then will shut them down, board them up, concrete them in or whatever, and go on and build another base somewhere else. What I will tell you is this. Let me stick with the question. You asked me, did I see any people being held captive during that abduction to Dulce? I remember seeing some individuals as I walked by. They looked as if they were in suspended animation. I went up to the clear casing that they were being held in. I put my hands on the casing and leaned towards them to see if I could get some kind of response. I did not. I could not discern whether they were dead or alive at that point. They were just not moving. And I could not see whether or not there was any fluid. I think that the casings were free of any fluid in this particular case. As far as my being taken to any other bases right now, I'm not going to comment on that because I'm still researching that. There has been speculation by and information from an Air Force officer at Kirkland Air Force Base that I, along with some other women and men, have been more than likely abducted and taken to underground research facility near Kirkland Air Force Base. It is in the Manzano mountain range south of Kirkland Air Force Base, where the nuclear testing was going on at the time. Question number 2. Did any of the alien or human contacts mention Dulce Wars? No. The alien beings that I came in contact with while underground did not speak to me. The human contacts did, but no. They did not mention any kind of wars going on there, so at that particular time, I was not aware of any kind of power struggle going on. I was taken there for specific purposes, I think. And once that was done, I was rushed out of there. I don't think any kind of knowledge like that in particular would have been given to me. There wouldn't have been any kind of reason to give that to me. Third question, what kind of reptilians, if any, have you encountered? Answer, I am almost virtually positive that I don't believe I have come across any reptilian aliens at all. The only types that I have been associated with most of my life have been small gray aliens, the ones that I call workers. These are beings that I believe are soulless beings that are workers for an established alien race. They are given certain chores, certain jobs, just like we would if we worked for a large company. There are some taller gray aliens, and I have encountered. Even though their eyes are large and dark, they don't have a reptilian look. I know what you're talking about, and no, I really have not encountered any of those. Next question. Do you know of any other bases that researchers may be aware of? Answer. That's a great question, really, because right now I'm working with 2 individuals from Great Britain. They are two wonderful researchers who have been associated with Timothy Good. I don't know if you've read this material above Top Secret. It's a wonderful book to get a read. Also, Alien Liaison is another one. But yes, I am aware of many, many, many underground facilities and bases that are being used for different purposes. Most of the underground bases are being used for covert purposes or otherwise purposes involving governments who are doing certain types of testing that they consider would be safer to do underground. And then there are the bases, one in particular north of Tucson, Arizona, where I am almost positive I was taken to. It goes under the cover or code name Evergreen Aviation. They have all the planes there and everything, but what I found during my 10 years of research is that this is a CIA-backed or based facility. I got very, very close to the facility. I climbed over a wired fence and sneaked in with a pilot friend of mine not long ago and got some great photographs of some black helicopters. These black helicopters are unmarked. There were other types of aircraft there as well. And so we really didn't believe that there were many, many bases in many, many states. I have heard bases in almost every state of the United States. Now, the two individuals that I am doing work for or research with in Great Britain especially are researching underground bases in America and Great Britain. I guess they contacted me because they felt like there was a tie-in or some kind of connection and that it would be a good thing to work together and share information and see what types of facilities we can find out about. In a lot of the facilities, they are doing medical testing. Some are actual laboratories like Los Alamos laboratories. They do massive amounts of covert work for black projects of our government. So we are talking about installations underground and above ground. They're doing things that we probably have no idea about. We hear rumors, of course, of different things that are going on. What I probably venture to guess is that more than likely these rumors have been proven about 90% of the time to be true. Next question. My belief is that the Greys operate from base animal or predatory instincts in their agendas to increase their power base and exploit other cultures, and that they will continue to do so as a collective until they are stopped by force. Some of the Greys, I believe, may be tamed by humans, so to speak, and attain a degree of emotional individuality if they can be severed from the collective hive mind. What are your views on this? I agree with you on most of that. Certainly the Greys seem to do things like a massive collective conscious. I have noticed that they do things together. There is almost no discussion amongst them. They seem to be working on projects or on certain things that are given to them by the higher-ups or higher alien beings and or humans. I really couldn't tell you. I have my doubts that humans would be able to tame any kind of alien intelligent here on Earth. If indeed it looks like humans are working among Greys together, that more than likely is because of a pact or some type of government agreement. I believe these aliens have come here for reasons, and certain individuals in the government have been given orders by their higher-ups to either give them opportunities to work alongside of these aliens for maybe a one-world purpose, unless it could be shown to me to be true that the humans tamed these Greys that were working alongside with me or on me. That would be very difficult for me to believe. Next question. Have you had encounters with any Nazi-type aliens like those described by Barney Hill, Alex Christopher, Vladimir Tarkowski, and others, alien fascists who date back to the secret Nazi flying disc experiments and who were allegedly working with the Greys and reptoids? Answer. I have heard of these aliens, these Nazi aliens. Of course, where I first heard about them was from Tal Levesque back in 1987. No, I've never come into contact with what I would call a Nazi-type alien, although since most of my experiences have involved medical experimentation, genetic experiments on me and my daughter or family, I would have to say that it reeks almost of, if you think about medical experiments that were done on the Jews during the Holocaust, that is what I equate some of the experiments that have happened to me. It's strange because I'm part German. I come from a family of originally from Germany, so I do have some German blood in me, but I'm not leaning one way or another. And as far as being a bigot is concerned, I am very, very open to all races, creeds, colors of people working together to establish a wonderful world, if that would be possible. But anyway, no, I have not encountered these Nazi types, and I've certainly heard a lot about them. I've heard that they are very mean-spirited aliens. I don't know what their agenda is, since I have not had contact with these types. I really have no reason to do research on them. And also the same goes for the tall reptilians, although many, many friends and other researchers have contacted me telling their tales of these reptilian alien races. The next question: what are your views of a possible congressionally backed takeover of Dulce Base in the future? And what would be your views on dealing with the problem supposing the Greys did not surrender? Answer: through all of the research that I have done and all of the proof that I have come up with, the many times I have been up there poking around with researchers and other individuals, we are almost positive now. I don't know if you haven't heard. You may have heard the rumor, or although it was a rumor, but I am of the belief system now that this base is or was deserted and is no longer being used by our government. For what reason, I'm not sure. I believe a lot of it had to do with if there is indeed a military action there, which we have found proof of. We found some spent military charge casings up near where we think one of the base's openings are. We found sea ration cans. We found different types of antenna that governments would have used for communications. These are things that have been found up in these mountainous areas. If you've ever been there, you'll know what I'm talking about. These things tell me that my research partner, indeed, there was some type of military response there in the past. The areas I speak about that my research partner who lives in the area claims were some of the openings to the base have been concreted, cemented up. Now that's been done by somebody. So we know that some type of government official company, we believe it to be CIA-backed organization that was there. In my Dulce papers, I show an area of a ranch just north of the Archuleta Mesa. Near, we have been unable to track or find the individuals who have owned this property now for many years. What we've been told by individuals who lived in or around the area is that there is a landing strip on that particular property. There are large towers. I did get onto the property and close up enough to get pictures of these bulletproof towers that were sitting on the property. There were about 20, and there are only 5 there now. We're wondering why they were taken out and where they were taken. Anyway, I've got pictures of those. These are not just fire towers. Some people try to explain them away by saying, oh, those are just so our ranchers could go up into the towers and look for fires and things like that. The strange part about this is that you walk up the towers and there is dark black glass. You couldn't look through or see. And it's bulletproof. That's what's strange, is the opening. You are unable to get into these towers. We don't know if they were just put here for show. We really don't know exactly what they are. But we believe that they were placed there for a reason. We have no understanding of that. There have been sightings of planes, small Learjets, landing in and out of that area over the years. Nobody in the town of Dulce seems to know who owns that property. My research partner did track someone down who owned the property over 20 years ago, but after that it seemed to go into covert hands. The property also had what looked like a small wooden house. You could just walk in there. It's been evacuated, and there's nothing there. This type of facility or front for an underground base in that area would be a perfect place because this area is cordoned off by what we believe at the time to be an electric fence, which they said was used to keep the cattle out. We believe that it is used for another purpose because of the signs posted all over, no trespassing, and these were the types of signs that you would see near Area 51. And so we have to wonder what is going on out there. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Andromeda Strain. I saw it the other day, just haven't seen it in a long time. The underground facility that they went to was stationed on kind of a muck-up farm where they went into the farmhouse and went into something like a tool shed, and then all of a sudden this elevator starts going down and down and down. And what they found once they went down there was a massive underground biological testing facility. I have to believe that these types of facilities are all over every state. So then, back to the question, if there was a military takeover, it already happened, and the base was closed. There was no proof there. Some of the Native Americans who live on Apache land, these people are very, very closed. They don't talk to outsiders. The information that I got was only from an inside source, and I can tell you that one Apache native told his dear friend many years there. He said that he was going up through a mountainous area, up through the Archuleta Mesa and back into the hills, and was walking alongside of a ledge. All of a sudden, he felt some dirt falling on his head. And so, of course, if you're walking around in this deserted area and you felt something fall on your head, your immediate response would be to look up. And he did. He looked up, and what he saw horrified him. This is a man. He is a man in his 60s. This man looked up and saw. This is what he told his friend. I saw a gray being with large black inky eyes staring down at me over a ledge, and it looked like a large rock had been swiveled out, was sticking out of the side of the mountain, and he did a double take and looked away like someone who would just rub their eyes. Oh, I'm just seeing things, but then he looked back and he saw it again. Well, this time he said he took off. He ran. He was running for his life. He was very frightened, scared, and what was strange is that this man is friends of a man high up in the Apache Tribal Council, but he has kept this secret from everyone except my research partner, and he told him that when he got back he was shaking. He was very frightened. So this tells me, and this just happened during the past couple years, this tells me there are still Greys inhabiting some parts of that base. Interesting question there that you had, because if indeed there is still part of the base that is still inhabited by the Greys, then certainly, if there is a problem, there may need to be congressional-backed military takeover of that base, or they may have just left it alone, just said, let the people of Dulce worry about the aliens. We don't want to deal with them anymore. I don't really know what happened during the military events that they had there. I don't really know what happened. I just know that I'm almost positive that there was some type of confrontation. So anyway, who knows? Who can say for sure? All I know is that there are a lot of these individuals that come up with different stories. There are individuals who are not the type of people to just come across with a tale. In fact, Many of them are not interested in UFOs. They're not interested in any of this. In fact, when the subject is brought up, they really don't want to talk about it. It's very hard to get access to that community. I've had a lot of problems getting answers, but thank God one of my research partners, his father lives there. He's lived there all his life, and this young man was brought up in Dulce. He knows what had happened there. He knows what the rumors are and the tales are, and he knows what all of the Native Americans have seen. Next question. Have you been taken to any other planets or spheres during your abductions? Answer. No, not that I know of. However, I remember that I was taken to some type of large, massive ship. It had to have been a mothership. This thing was massive. It was miles and miles and miles long. I'm not really sure exactly where I was. I received some instructions while I was there. There were light beings there. They looked like angelic beings, only without wings. They were wearing long robes, and I was taken into an area where they had a podium and a teacher that came out and was teaching the people who were there. These people were human. I did not see any aliens, grays, at that time, so I'm not exactly sure where I was. Next question. Did you ever see what was inside of the tanks? No, not during the Dulce experience. I started to walk up to the tank. It smelled very foul. It was an odor that I can only identify as being close to a sulfuric type odor. I remember when I first went into the medical field, we were invited downtown to view an autopsy, and the formaldehyde they used there was sickening sweet smell. It's a smell that is very difficult to try to explain to somebody who has never smelled it before, but I can say that it smelled a lot like that. The officer, the military man that was with me, guiding me, would not allow me up to the tank to look inside. I can only speculate that there was something in there that may have been frightening to me, because he reacted very quickly to stop me. You asked if there were both breeding and feeding tanks. I believe so, because from what I've been told by some other women who saw these tanks, some believe they saw body parts inside. The type of tanks that I saw were used for breeding and cultivation of small alien beings. The only thing that I can describe it as is of a being of like a fake womb. A woman carries her child in her uterus. Well, these types of breeding tanks that you are talking about were used to cultivate the fetus that they extracted from individuals that they have abducted. They extract the fetus like they have done so many times before, and I believe they place it in a type of tank, a glass-looking breeding tank. Next question. What do you think most of the hybrids feel about the position they are in? Answer. That's such a great question, and many people ask that. I myself, being a hybrid, have felt that I do not fit in anywhere. I still feel like I don't fit in to this day. I know I don't. I know I'm different, and I don't try to tell everybody that either. I just have accepted it and go on with my life. But I can assure you that every hybrid I've spoken to has told me, has tried to explain to me the emphasis and the feelings that they feel. They feel almost like they don't belong here on Earth. I certainly feel that I don't belong here. Next question. If the outer world gets a hold of the Dulce technology and begins using it to colonize other worlds, could this alleviate the population, economic, environmental, and other problems that this planet faces? In other words, take away the imposed barriers that have kept us earthbound, and in essence finally let us out of the cradle, so to speak. The Greys, for one, do not wish Terrians to gain interstellar advantages, and so become a threat to their own empirical agenda, and operating through various power cults on Earth, they have succeeded in keeping interplanetary technology out of our hands and robbing us of our resources to finance the joint subterranean and external projects, many which projects and bases have been taken over entirely by their own kind and at our expense. Once robbed of our resources, the Greys use their psychological slaves on Earth to set us against each other, and then in turn around say, "Ha, you people are too violent to be allowed to have interstellar tech." Although there have been technology exchanges, it would seem that they are either being used as a ruse by the Greys to gain access to our society so that they can impose a global electronic dictatorship and or its technology that is being provided by Federation Nordics so that they can defend the planet Earth for the mutual benefit of themselves and their human cousins on Earth. What do you think of all this? Answer: I believe without a doubt that we have been working on projects to colonize the moon underground and also to colonize Mars. I've talked with scientists, I've talked with former NASA astronauts who believe without a doubt that is what's going on. They don't feel like it's anything alien. Some of the astronauts say they felt like, well, this is just technology and we've developed it on our own, and that certainly population is a problem that you have to think about way in advance, and that humans have come to all of these conclusions themselves. I disagree. I think that it is alien technology that has given to us, and I think that we are running with it, and we've already started. Like with a biosphere, a lot of people think that it's just for learning about our ecology and things like plants, animals, and all that. I know that's a front. I know of a lot of things that went on underground there that is also an underground facility. It's a massive facility, and it's a wonderful facility. The technology there is being tested, was alien tech. All this will be used when they start to colonize the moon and Mars. These are the two planets right now. Actually, the moon is not such a planet. Some argue that the Earth's moon system is actually a double planet. As for other planets, it might be logical to begin with the polar regions of Venus and the equatorial regions of Mars. What would you consider the greatest weakness of the Greys to be? I can tell you right now that the main weakness of the Greys is that they have no soul. They are soulless. Do not allow them to tell you otherwise. Some of them have been known to try to impart some type of false religious prophecies on people that they have abducted. And the thing is, you have to realize that these aliens have their own agenda, and it's not something that I feel is positive, one really. So I have found out from dealing with them most of my life, they are soulless. They have no soul. And when it comes to my religious beliefs or background, I am not afraid to say it. I am a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in one ultimate being, God, who created all alien beings of all kinds, all different constellations where people have colonized throughout the universe, being animals, things we probably have no idea about. Certainly, I have to believe that the Greys are. The only way I can describe it is that they are an empty case. There's nothing there other than superior technology type brain apparatus up in their skull area. Otherwise, they are no use to us, really. They are really of no use. They are used to impart different technologies and give us info. But as far as trusting them, I don't trust them as far as I could throw them. What do you think our greatest strength as human beings are? Well, our greatest strength is our belief in God. Our greatest strength is that ability. And our only connection with each race is our connection with one supreme being, God. Now, I do believe that God saw at some point in our history the need for someone to guide us into the positive way of living. I believe that Jesus was born as an example of the way that God would want us to live our lives. If we believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God, the one and only God, then we have to believe that it is all true. I believe that he, Jesus, will be coming back. I believe in angels. I collect angels' artistic representations. My best friend in Wisconsin sends me angel cards all of the time, and I send her angel things, angel that, angel jewelry, angel statues, everything, because I believe truly that angels walk among us. Believe me, I've seen them, I've dealt with them, I have spoken with them, for example, her experience on the mothership. However, in that case, we would have to ask if they are standing or falling angels, such as the rebel alien angels or fallen light beings that have been seen by abductees working in collaboration with the Greys and reptoids on their starships. I have several close calls where I can only state that these angels have appeared out of just nowhere and saved my life. So I have to believe that there are God beings, servants. They are wonderful. The 12th chapter of Revelation is revealing in this regard, as it seems to generally convey a picture of war in the heavens between humanoids who are backed by standing angels and reptoids who are backed by rebel angels, as well as prophecies that the reptilian power bases among the stars will be broken as the draconian forces retreat to Earth to make their last stand, and in doing so, they form a cavernous empire and support a global dictatorship in a desperate effort to gain human allies for one last-ditch effort, do or die assault on the heavenly denominations. The thing to remember would be to use caution, since rebel angels have the ability to appear as angels of light to those who are capable of deceiving. So examine your messages as though your soul depends on it. If you do happen to encounter such a being or beings, as for the draconians themselves, in all fairness, individual reptoids are not the ultimate enemy. The enemy is the Luciferian collective under which they serve, and the same can be said for the New World Order, which is prophesied in the book of Revelations. Those who are enslaved in this system by the choice or deception are not the ultimate enemy. The Luciferian system itself is the enemy. Something that is not often considered is the reptilian perspective in regards to physical and spiritual survival. One of the problems is that the reptilians are intelligent and sentinel enough, thanks to the part of the Luciferians who aided in destroying the original immortal status of both mankind and beast, to realize that when they die physically, they also die spiritually, due to the fact that they have no inherent soul. The reptilians fully realize this, and it terrifies them to no end. One of the reasons for the hybrid projects is not to develop certain physical attributes within their race, but most importantly, to give their posterity a soul so that they can survive beyond the grave, hopefully in an eternally bliss rather than one of torment. We should not say that because a being has reptilian genes, they are a result of evil. Evil is not genetic, but a choice. Because of the fact that many of the reptilians are mere cells in the Luciferian collective hive, it is not the individual reptilians that are at fault. First, however, we must accept that a divine order was originally established for the universe, beginning with the Almighty Creator and descending through the various angelic hierarchies throughout humankind, followed by the reptoid race, who originally held the position somewhere between mankind and the beasts, and following this, the lower animal kingdoms, and finally, the nature kingdom itself. This is the original divinely ordered hierarchy through which divine life from the source of all creation cascades down from the higher to lower levels. If this hierarchy is broken, like it was as a result of the intervention by the fallen angels, then unity and continuity is destroyed and chaos reigns. The following is a case similar to Christa Tilton's case. It is the Donovan Masters story. The following is what I believe to be a very real experience, which I believe ties into the experiences of Christa Tilton. 3 of my friends and I were taken to what I perceived to be an underground government facility or UFO base. I say friends because that is how I perceived them. Although I had not met them at the time, I remember feeling as though I had been drugged. As if everything was kind of going in slow motion, we were placed on and strapped to a conveyor belt by our wrists and ankles. The conveyor was activated, and as it began to move, our bodies were passed through blocks of pure, intense light. These blocks of light, perhaps laser scanning devices, were either green or blue in color. At each block of light, there was what I perceived to be a robot controller. They also were either green or blue in color. Their color corresponded to the color of the light in front of which they stood. The robots were in a human form, but with no distinguishable human characteristics. Along the wall in the first room were barrels of some substance which had a pungent odor. These barrels were stacked, one on top of another. Suddenly, we were on a different conveyor belt, or at the end of the first one. As the belt moved around in a circular console, it stopped. There were 2 men, human in form and characteristics, seated at the console. One assisted the other. One of them picked up what I thought was a razor and shaved an area on my back left side just below my waistline. I remember that the spot bled considerably. I was released, and they began to do the same procedure to my friends. I remember thinking over and over, what is going to happen to me? He replied, "You have just been implanted with your government control extension number." I remember grabbing a mirror and looking at it. The number 04 was there. In a very upset manner, I turned to the woman in the uniform and explained, "You cannot do this to me." Incidentally, all of the personnel in this facility wore uniforms. I then ran back to the console where I was released. By that time, my friends had also been released. I hurriedly told them what I had discovered had happened to us. As I was speaking, the 2 men at the console were gathering materials hurriedly in what seemed like an attempt to escape. In particular, I remember the man that had implanted the number on me had a computer printout list. He protected this list with his life. As my friends and I ran after him and the other man, they escaped through a set of double doors. I sincerely believe that Christina was also in this facility at the time, although I don't think this was our first meeting. I will never forget the first time I talked to Christina on the phone. It was September 20th, 1987. I felt as though I was hearing the voice of an old friend, as though I had known her all my life. She later sent me a picture of herself, which only solidified my feeling. When I saw that picture, I had flashbacks of seeing her aboard the craft. It was a very emotional moment for me, seeing her again. Since that time, a beautiful, enduring friendship of unconditional love has developed. She is truly a flower in the garden of my life and a true friend. There you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go. And honestly, what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated
with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those that you care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.